Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So some of you may have already seen it, but Blizzard just announced a big class tuning update going live with the next reset, and one of the main beneficiaries of this update is Preservation Evoker, receiving one of the biggest buffs that I can remember having seen put on a single class in a single patch. Well, to be fair, Preservation Evoker also needed a huge buff, but they are also getting one. So we're going to be looking at these changes. First of all, looking at them individually, and then we will be looking at a healing example from a recently played Operation Floodgate dungeon, the highest that has yet been played by Preservation Evoker on level 18, and see how much of a contribution these changes make to overall healing throughput. So let's look at the changes first. First of all, we have a 4% healing increase, overall a flat increase. Blizzard does that quite frequently for underperforming specializations, just increasing their healing by 4 or 5% and then leaving it at that. However, they seem to have realized that Preservation Evoker needs more than that, and we are getting more. So we have a Living Flame healing increase of 30% on top of that, and as Living Flame is, or should be, already one of your main contributors to your overall healing throughput, this is actually quite a major change. And then we also have 20% buff to Spirit Bloom, which is your main rotational abilities, and it's mainly used in your ability combos, and you cast it essentially every 15 seconds. So that's also a pretty big buff. And then we have a bit of a weird buff. I think they make it so that Echo feels a little bit less unsatisfying to press. That would be my guess. So it's an increase to Echo's base healing. So it has nothing to do with the Echoed spell, but it is the healing that occurs when you press the ability Echo. And if you didn't know that it does any healing, that's because you barely feel it at all. So this is not a huge buff, but it's actually not negligible either. So there is a bit of healing that goes out from Echo because you press it all the time overall, and this makes this quite a bit stronger, but it's not the biggest of deals. So let's look at the healing example in Operation Floodgate Dungeon on level 18 to consider these changes in detail. Now, we have a change to Chrono Flame, so we'll be looking at what this does to the overall healing. So Chrono Flame here contributed to 520 million, and this is increased by 30%. So we have an increase of 156 million. Then we have a contribution of Spirit Bloom of 475 million, and this increased by 20%. So we have an overall healing increase of 95 million. And then also we have a contribution of, you can see it here, so it's not nothing which Echo contributes. It's a 1.5% of overall healing, so 54 million. And as this is increased by 100%, we can just write down 54 million here. So we have an old overall healing of 3,630 million, and we have a new one of this value plus all these changes, so 3630 plus 156 plus 95 plus 54. So we have a new value of 3935 million. And this value we can multiply by the overall flat 4% increase for an overall new final healing for this example of 4.1 billion roughly. And now we consider how much bigger is this than the old value of 3630 million, and we get a ratio of 1.13 roughly, so it's about a 13% healing increase based on this example. It might not be the same for all examples, but we'll roughly land in this ballpark between 10 and 15% increased healing. So what does this mean? If we look here at some of the healing logs that have been posted by Preservation Evoker, we can see that they top out here about 1.8 million HPS, and in other dungeons it's a little bit lower, but I take Floodgate here as a reference because it has the highest requirement. But yeah, around 1.8 million. So we can multiply this 1.8 million by the 13%, so let's go 1.85 times 1.13, so we land around 2.1 million HPS for Preservation Evokers going forward. as a maximum. Now keep in mind that hardly anyone plays Preservation Evoker, so there might be some inefficiencies in these data. It's likely that if more people picked up the specializations, this would go up a little bit more. So maybe we are even looking at lower, like 2.2 million HPS. And if we look at other specializations, this actually isn't that bad anymore. Of course, they go quite a bit higher on Operation Floodgate, but Operation Floodgate is also a dungeon where healing of Disc Priest might be slightly inflated. Yeah, so I don't think Preservation Evoker will be very competitive going forward. I think its numbers will still be relatively low, but I also want to commend Blizzard on these changes. These are huge changes, and I'm very excited to be trying them out on my Preservation Evoker. I think with good gameplay, Preservation Evoker is now much more competitive than it was before, and I think that is going to be a lot of fun, and we'll see where it takes us. Maybe I'll make another commentary video about that. If these changes incentivize you to pick up your own Preservation Evoker again and you're a little bit rusty, you might want to consider checking out my Preservation Evoker guide, which I've recently posted. If you like these kinds of analytical approaches to class tuning and talking about healing performance, then I would be very happy if you liked the video or subscribed to my channel. But even if you do not want to do that, thank you very much for watching, and see ya.